Welcome back for all of our listeners. This is the Parent Solution, your one-stop shop for all things educational. I'm your host, Kimberly, and today I'm talking about empathy, what it is and why it's important, and how you can use it to empower your child rather than causing future problems for them. So, empathy, as defined in the dictionary, is the ability to understand or to share the feeling of another. Oftentimes, parents want to empathize with their child as they grow and they face different challenges in life. And, showing empathy in and of itself isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying that. But I think when empathy is completely emotionally charged and it's not regulated with a good dose of what I would like to say is critical thinking, it can end up becoming a rather debilitating crutch instead of helpful support. Now, I know that parents generally try to make good decisions for their children and in their children's best interests. But when we as parents are feeling emotions that we think that our child is feeling, which is often due to our own past experiences, I think sometimes our solutions can backfire. For example, there's a child who's afraid of heights and they don't want to look over the railing at Niagara Falls. A parent may understand that fear of heights, and they're going to potentially remember when they were a child, and their caretaker or their adult guardian or their parent forced them to stand alone, and maybe they'd even been taunted because of their weakness. Now, of course, this parent wants to avoid that same kind of hurt for their child at all costs, because as a parent, you just want what's best for your child. They may, in the attempt to empathize, coddle the child who's afraid of heights instead of having a conversation with said child where they might find out why the child's afraid and how to face that fear in very decisive steps. They simply just gloss over the issue and the child's left with a fear of heights that can reach into adulthood. So in this scenario, the parent is trying to do the right thing by empathizing with their child and shielding them from fear. But if we look at this critically, we can see that in this case, anyways, fear can provide an opportunity for teaching bravery. Now, I'm not saying that the parent should dare their child to go to the edge of the railing or taunt their child about their fear or force their child to do it anyway. What I am saying is that the parent can take solid positive steps to be able to empathize critically with their child. In this case, the first step would be to remind your child of how brave they are. And you can explain the reasons why it's not necessary for them to be afraid. You could demonstrate the safety measures that should be taken, for this particular example. And you might even demonstrate yourself performing the action in a way that your child would be able to see themselves doing it. So the difference here is that instead of covering the fear and glossing over it and coddling it, you as a parent are actively giving your child tools to fight fear. Because let's face it, fear doesn't just magically disappear when you become an adult. It's there, it's just hiding behind different issues. But when a child is taught from young, when they know the steps they need to take to overcome fear, whatever fear that might be, they're going to be able to use that skill set all throughout their life. And what you get then is an adult who doesn't panic and who knows how to think clearly, even when they're facing a frightening situation. So as a parent, when you find yourself empathizing with a child, whether it's your child or someone else's, maybe you're sensing some emotional overload on their part, I think it's really important to ask yourself certain questions. The first one would be, what opportunities am I giving my child? And what opportunities am I taking away from them? What opportunities can I give them that are going to help them strengthen their weaknesses and improve upon their strengths? And I think the most important one to ask is, am I setting them up for success in life later down the road when I, as a parent, am not here to be their guide? There's always choices to be made as your child experiences the world around them. And I think it's really important to consciously realize that for every opportunity that you give your child, you're taking away another one, which is not a bad thing because some opportunities are not developmentally friendly for your child. The point is to know when certain opportunities can or should be introduced and also how to introduce them. A large part of parenting is scaffolding. This means knowing when to introduce new situations or challenges to your child, which are going to stretch them and help them grow, while you as a parent are there to support them. I think it's important to be intentional with your scaffolding because if you're conscious about the choices you make with how you handle your child's daily experiences, you're going to be much better at setting them up for success. Being intentional requires, I think, a great deal of patience. It means giving your child an appropriate amount of space in order to problem solve and experience the process of trial and error. And that is one of the hardest things as a parent, because you just want them to get it right. You want them to be able to do it most efficiently and the quickest way, right? But I think we undervalue the experience of the process of trial and error. Because when you're patient as a parent, when you're patient with the learning process, empathy can be used as a motivator for a positive outcome. When your child comes across a hardship, instead of trying to take it away as quickly as possible, if it's appropriate, you want to be able to work through it, and you want them to be able to work through it. Being able to break down those sorts of emotions or reactions or responses or habits is a really powerful ability that's going to propel your child forward in life. They're not going to be able to exercise their skill in that area if you, as the parent, don't give them the time and the space that's needed to figure it out. When you take time to honestly reflect on how you manage empathy for your child, you're going to be better equipped to help your child grow into a logical and independent adult who's going to impact this world for the better. So I hope that this podcast episode has been helpful for you and has perhaps given you some things to put into practice or some ideas or concepts to put into practice with your own children. If you have any comments or questions, you can always find me on social media. It's Star Students on Facebook and LinkedIn, or starstudents.learning on Instagram. You can also reach out through email, which is all over social media channels. Thank you, as always, so much for listening, and I'll be back next week.